once you are questioned, it will not be my first word was pray, cover, fast. It was read. And I think that that is a direct command from God in the Quran, which every Muslim really takes seriously in terms of initiating change.
Do you have an argument with that?
I have an argument with that. I think that, and I mentioned in the Quran, in my...
There's one question that keeps following Ayaan Hirsi Ali into every room she walks into. Who actually earns the right to call for reform, and does staying diplomatically quiet really protect anyone? Watch how she answers it twice, in two very different settings, and you'll see exactly why Ayaan is the most dangerous weapon against Islam.
Now by Ayaan Hirsi Ali and Manal Omar. Welcome.
Thank you.
I want to start with you, Ayaan. Your argument is that it's foolish to insist, as our leaders habitually do, you write, that the violent acts of radical Islamists can be divorced from the religious ideals that inspire them. Islam is not.
Before she even lays out her argument, the host has already framed the guest sitting across from her, Manal Omar, as one of the most respected voices on Islamic reform working from inside the faith. You'll see why that host was presented in that manner, and what it means as we go on, how it sets up exactly the dynamic that's about to play out, the insider versus the outsider, and who gets to be believed.
Today is not a religion of peace, and in the book I make a distinction between, let's say, three sets of Muslims. There are the Medina Muslims, the Mecca Muslims, and the dissidents who want to reform. And the Medina Muslims are those Muslims who apply anything and everything that the Prophet Muhammad did after he emigrated to Medina, and they apply the Quran literally. So it's groups like ISIS, the Taliban, etc. But there's a huge group of Muslims, I think they are the largest number, who I call them Mecca Muslims, who are peace-loving and practice only the peaceful parts of their religion. And then there are those who want to reform the religion, the reformists or the heretics.
Ayaan doesn't come in swinging. She lays out her own structured framework instead. Three rough categories within Islam, from literalists who act on the harshest interpretations of the text, to a much larger peaceful majority, to a small reform-minded group trying to alter the religion from within. It's deliberate and careful, and that structure is exactly what she'll lean on once the disagreement starts.
It's extremely important today for the Medina Muslims to lose. We want the dissidents to convince the Mecca Muslims, that large contingent of people, to reform their religion from within.
Should you really be the voice for that?
I think that
You're not a believer anymore.
All of us who are born into Islam, the minute we start to criticize the religion from within, we're labeled heretics, apostates, we're condemned to death. And I think change is not going to come from the clerics. Change is going to come from the heretics. That's why I'm speaking out.
But you're trying to make changes as well. You believe there should be some reform, Manal. Is she the right spokesperson for this?
Well, I think
her approach?
I think the authenticity of the message is very important. I think the challenge is if you've been on record attacking Islam or trying to marginalize those who have a voice believing in peaceful Islam, then it's very hard for you to be able to call on a reform of Islam.
Notice how Omar counters that reform is already happening from the inside, and questions whether Ayaan is even the right person to be leading this conversation at all. Watch where she takes that next, because it's not really about the argument anymore.
Of the Quran is iqra, is read, and I would argue that is civic participation, that is holding accountability. It is exactly not letting the clerics define your religion, but you as personal responsibility. I feel that once you are questioned, it will not be my first word was pray, cover, fast. It was read, and I think that that is a direct command from God in the Quran, which every Muslim really takes seriously in terms of initiating change.
You have an argument?
Notice how Omar's response pivots entirely toward credibility and tone. It sounds measured. But Ayaan doesn't take the bait. She reframes the whole idea of authenticity back at her, pointing out that anyone raised in the faith who dares question it from inside gets branded a heretic before the conversation even starts. If silence is the only thing that earns credibility, that's not a standard about credibility at all. It's just a filter for who's allowed to speak.
Argument with that, I think and I mentioned in the Quran, in my book, that there are these 5 key concepts within Islam that need to change. Yes, the Quran says read, but the Quran also says kill. And there are Muslims who take that literally. Yes, the Prophet Muhammad preached peace in Mecca, but later on he
There are
preached
examples
death.
in the Bible,
Yes.
in the Torah as well.
Matthew's
Leviticus,
10:34.
whoever blasphemes the name of the Lord should surely be put to death. All the congregation shall stone
Or
him.
Matthew's
But
10:34, I
where
don't come
are
in
the
peace.
Christians today who are forming movements like the Islamic State, who want to introduce Sharia law and apply it? And look at what happens when Sharia law is applied.
This is where the exchange sharpens into something genuinely uncomfortable. Ayaan isn't just talking about Islam in isolation. She draws a comparison to older religious texts that once carried equally harsh language and eventually went through their own reckonings. Her whole point, naming the problem out loud, isn't an attack on the faith. It's the very first step toward the reform Omar claims she wants to see.
Just this Wednesday, in Yemen, Muslims killed 135 other
But
Muslims.
should it be such
where
a
are the
broad
Christians
brush?
who are doing that?
Medina, as you say, Medina Muslims are a small group. I know that means millions and millions of people.
Yeah.
But should all Muslims, doesn't this incite people to be anti-Muslim?
Day in, day out, in the name of Islam, people are killed, and most victims are Muslims. It is now time to look at and reform the religion of Islam so that we get to a place where we have peace. That is the message of this book. The message of this book is not to attack. I'm not here to attack Muslims. I'm here to say we need that courageous step, and that is to reform the religion from within.
Thank you very much, both.
Omar tries to shift the frame one more time, and that's a fair, real concern, not a dodge. But it also leaves the original question sitting there, mostly unanswered. If not direct confrontation, then what actually moves reform forward? Watch closely, because that same tug-of-war resurfaces again, this time in front of a live studio audience instead of a news panel.
Yet you deny Muslim women agency and receive almost no support from them. Your support in Western countries has come from right-wing conservatives that benefit from you speaking when, as you have said, they would have been labelled racists. Why do you make life more difficult for Muslim women in Western countries by calling them slaves and submissive robots, and for women in Muslim countries by advocating military strikes on places like Iraq and Iran?
Let's go to this side of the panel, and Ayaan, we'll start with you.
The first questioner puts it to her directly and without much softening. Doesn't her approach just make life harder for the very Muslim women she claims to be standing up for?
To you?
Well, I do have Muslim women as my friends and as my supporters. I have started a foundation in the United States of America, and we welcome women, young women, young girls, women of middle age, and here's what they complain about. Here's what they come to us for. They're subjected to forced marriages. They're running away from a forced marriage, and their children are taken away from them. They have no custody. They are subjected to women who see their own children being forced into marriage. They're subjected to female genital mutilation. They're enslaved. They're forced to wear the veil when they don't want to wear the veil. This is what is happening to Muslim women. And when you said that at times you feel squeamish about, being a white man and in that culture, here's what I wish that white men and white women would not feel squeamish about. It is to protect the rights of the individuals within these communities and within these groups. If you have young girls who are subjected to forced marriage, it is not a marriage. It's an arranged rape. It's a forced rape, and I wish we were not squeamish about it. We were not squeamish about slavery. We were not squeamish about eradicating civil rights, apartheid, and I wish that that is one thing we would not be squeamish about.
Emma, let's bring you in.
She doesn't dodge it. Instead, she grounds her answer in specifics, describing the foundation she runs in the United States and exactly who walks through its doors, not hypotheticals. Real women, running from forced marriages, fighting to keep custody of their own children.
Skating, we haven't heard from you on any of them, so maybe you'd like to pick up on some of the threads there. I mean, do you feel squeamish at all as a white Western woman thinking or talking about this subject?
Well, a quarter of the world's population are Muslims. 1.6 billion people are Muslim. There is huge diversity within that group. You meet many Muslims who get great joy and meaning from their practice of Islam. You'll hear many criticize the Islamic State and say that is not what Islam is about. For most Muslims in the world, they do not see the Islamic State as Muslim. That's why the Islamic State doesn't have millions and millions of followers. The vast majority of Muslims in the world do not adhere to that, do not agree to that.
It's hard to imagine that Islam still glorifies genital mutilation and forced veiling in 2026. As Ayaan points out, refusing to name these problems out loud is what she calls a bigotry of low expectations, holding one group of women to a lower bar of protection, simply because the subject makes everyone else uncomfortable.
There are many, many different issues that Ayaan has highlighted. And the question for me is, what is the best way to address those? If it's extremism within Islam, then the best people to address that are Muslims. What can I and others who are non-Muslim do to help empower those Muslims to address it and not make all Muslims feel that their faith, their way of life is under threat? Because that just makes things worse. So I think much more about how to address these issues. What is the most effective way of addressing these issues?
And do you think, again...
Emma Sky offers the calmer counterweight here, reminding us why we're here in the first place. It's true that well over 1 billion people practice Islam worldwide, with enormous diversity in how they live it out. Most Muslims themselves reject extremism entirely. It's a genuinely fair point, and it's about to get tested in real time. But then comes the hard question she has to chew on.
Woman, that if you were to call for reformation of Islam, it wouldn't be right coming from your lips?
It is not my religion. Do I look at Ted Cruz or Trump and think those are representatives of Christianity? Do we want to hear people of other faiths condemning Christianity because of the way that those people behave? Yes, there's lots that needs to happen within Islam. And I talk to many Muslim friends about that. But I don't feel as a Western non-Muslim that my role is to stand up and to criticize aspects of their religion. I will criticize violence. I will criticize the horrible terrorist attacks that took place in France. Those are awful. But I will not say that is Islam.
Jean-Christophe, a brief answer here, if you don't mind.
Yeah, brief.
You see, if reform needs to happen, it should come from within Islam itself. Outsiders that keep piling on risks make ordinary Muslims feel their whole identity is under attack, which only makes things worse.
You know, recently, in the strategy of this extremist group, and this maybe serves the interest of what we defend altogether, in the sense that now, you know, Al-Qaeda was targeting Christians or white people, you know, so non-Muslim and non-origin of the third world. But the new terrorist attack that we have supported were undiscriminated. And there were many Muslims among the victims. And this has completely changed the way the Muslim community in France sees these attacks. I mean, it touches also their lives, you know. And in that sense, we have to preserve this unity that has, you know, started to exist after this.
Can I come back in here? Because I think when you look at what's happened in London.
Now, before the sharpest moment lands, Ayaan Hirsi says something worth sitting with.
Briefly again, because we've got a few other questions to get to.
Oh, goodness me. Where do I begin? Well, first, I think the Sadiq Khan, the election, I mean, let it be on the record that that is a best-case scenario. I wish you are right. But he's also elected because of the organized Islamists who have an agenda. And let's see if I am right. If he doesn't give them what they want, what the retaliation will be. And if he gives them what they want, we will see what that means, especially for women and children. Now, that...
Well, your friend Majid Nawaz disagrees with that, by the way. Majid says that, that Khan is not connected to those groups at all.
No, he doesn't say that. He says Majid Nawaz is not an Islamist, but he is most definitely most definitely elected because he depended too heavily on the organized Islamists. That's what Majid says. And if that is the case, if Majid is right, then we shall see what scenario comes. I mean, I really wish that you are right. Absolutely, Emma. I hope you are right. Now, on the one about what you said.
Notice how she points to Sadiq Khan's election as Mayor of London as living proof that pluralism actually works in practice. Ayaan doesn't dismiss it outright. She even calls it the best-case scenario. But there's a part she raises a pointed caveat about the organised political forces behind that win, and what happens down the road if the expectations tied to that support aren't met. She even invokes Majid Nawaz's own assessment that Khan has no direct ties to those groups.
A white woman or a white man, what you can and cannot say. Let's go back to that first question, which was, as citizens of the same nation state, if we share or purport to share the same destiny, then I don't think that you can hold on to the logic that only Muslims can criticize Islam, only Christians can criticize Christianity, and so on. We don't want a parallel society existing or consisting of all these fragmented communities, but we're all individuals. And I think if, in the name of Islam, liberal institutions and liberal rights are being threatened, then it is everyone's obligation, not just Muslims, to criticize that.
OK, remember, if you hear any doubtful claims...
That closing pulls both rooms together into one idea. If everyone shares the same citizenship and the same stake in a functioning liberal society, the notion that only insiders get to critique their own faith doesn't hold up as a principle. It just becomes a convenient way to avoid uncomfortable conversation altogether. Two panels, two very different settings, one repeated test running underneath both. Does careful diplomacy actually protect people, or does it just protect everyone else's comfort at their expense? Whichever side of that you land on, it's easy to see why these two exchanges keep resurfacing. Not because she won, in any dramatic sense. Rather, she was consistently the only person willing to answer the question everyone else kept sidestepping.